Is the indictment. It has a list of all of the different people who have been named in the indictment, the state of Georgia v., and then a whole list. And the number one person at the top of the list is former President Donald John Trump.
Yeah, and there are 19 other defendants listed in there, along with the charges as well, that include violation of the Georgia RICO. So of course we had talked about RICO, and kind of one of the strongest, widest nets that DA Fani Willis could pursue in this, and that is at the top of the list here.
Let's check in with Joylyn Nakrin, who is one of our Atlanta News First anchors, also an attorney, and she's standing by with Brendan Keefe, our chief investigator. They're in the newsroom. And guys, you've just gotten your hands on these documents as well. What are you seeing?
All 98 pages. We're trying to sift through the 98 pages. But, the major headline here, as you guys have already stated, is that Donald Trump is, in fact, indicted, just as we anticipated. And we are seeing 13 different indictments involving the former president. There were 39 indictments listed here. And as predicted, each one centers along a certain fact pattern, a particular fact pattern, particular series of events. And so, for instance, number one, which is, I would say, the most significant of these, is a RICO. That is an indictment for the violation of the Georgia RICO Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organization Act. The former president is indicted under RICO, as well as several other now co-defendants, most notably his former attorneys Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, and Sidney Powell in connection to RICO. And this is something that we focused on quite a bit because it is there are certain legal requirements for a prosecutor to bring forth an indictment and a grand jury to issue a true bill related to RICO. And one of the requirements is certain underlying crimes such as conspiracy and false statements, also on the list here of charges. I'm seeing here that the former president, among his 13 charges, not just RICO, but also indicted for solicitation of violation of oath by public officer, conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer, conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree, conspiracy to commit false statements, numerous conspiracy charges. They're 13. I don't want to keep I want to give you a chance.
No, this is it, Joy. You're the attorney here, but I'll tell you, in my time of investigative reporting, we now know why this took so long to file, because we're looking at 41 total counts. There's just 40 on the front page, but as you go deeper into the indictment, we're looking at 41 total counts and 19 separate defendants, and it involves basically everything we've been talking about from day one. But 13 of those charges are assigned to Donald John Trump, the former president of the United States, and he is now officially indicted on these state charges under case number 23 SC 188947. And what's next, as you know, as an attorney, that now we're going to have an arraignment, and we're likely to see Donald John Trump, the former president, treated like any other defendant, according to the sheriff.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what we've heard from the sheriff, is that we expect a mugshot. Look, we don't believe it until we see it, right? We'll report after the fact if and when it happens, but certainly that's something that the former president has said would bolster his campaign. He said, essentially all I need is a fourth indictment. But in terms of an arraignment, legally, the former president does have a right to, basically waive the in-person appearance. So it remains to be seen. Is he going to avoid appearing in person for the arraignment, or is he going to, come to court and face a judge for the charges to be heard, for him to enter a plea? We've seen him enter not guilty pleas in his other cases, 3 now indictments, criminal indictments against the former president, one of those in state court in New York, 2 of those in federal court, one of those in a Florida federal court, one of those in a federal court in Washington, D.C. So that's what we're anticipating next, is the arraignment, which again, that's when the charges are formally read, and that is when the former president or his attorneys on his behalf will then enter a plea. And if we've learned anything about Donald Trump, it is that he fights for his position, and he has maintained that he is not guilty, that he's innocent, that phone call was, quote, perfect to Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger in January of 2021, in which he was heard saying, I need 11,780 votes.
Not all charges attached to all defendants here. They are spread out, and and by the way, these documents that we have, this is double-sided right here, so this is printed on both sides. This is a thick and thorough indictment, and there's a lot of bold-faced names, but there's also some names we have not heard before, and these involve the calls to Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman. Those are also indicted in here, and basically it's everything we've been talking about, but quickly, just some of the bold-faced names. Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, he was the supposed constitutional scholar who came up with the January 6th plan to essentially throw out the Georgia and other state electors. The former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, Kenneth Chesebro, Jeffrey Clark, Jenna Ellis, she was another attorney of Donald Trump. And then you've got a whole list of others, including David Schaefer, who is the former GOP chair for the state of Georgia. And then these other names like Sidney Powell, who was also an attorney who had a sort of wild speculation that Venezuela and the ghost of Hugo Chavez were somehow involved with rigging Dominion voting machines, which we know is completely false. And now she is criminally charged, an attorney who recommended this plan along with the others to Donald Trump. So these are the things we're seeing, and we're seeing some very serious charges listed in these indictments.